mann som öknar bruk och snusbullar.
Hello everyone, hello world, hello YouTubes. It's Shawna with DisruptApps again, and we're moving right along with our series. And in part 9, we went over a whole bunch of stuff, learning about loops and arrays. And we learned about how using arrays and loops together makes for an efficient way to create code and to render out what you want, your content. And so far, we've just been rendering out to the console, right? And we've been console logging everything. And so in this tutorial, I actually want to get into rendering out into the page, finally, making a real web page again. So let's get back to our code. And we're just going to get rid of all this stuff. We're going to start pretty much from scratch again. Okay. And get rid of this code, delete, and Control S to save, and everything should be back to normal. All right, good. Now, if you remember, way back in the series, when we were designing the page, and we went through step by step through everything of how to render things. I believe it was in part 6 when we talked about intro to JavaScript and JavaScript basics, where we learned about the document.getElementById when we learned about that method. Yeah, we're going to be using this once again to render content here in the HTML page. So we'll come to our HTML page, and let's go ahead and get all this back functioning, and we'll uncomment that, Control S to save, and we'll come back to our page and refresh. So here we were back from I think it was part 6. Okay, and coming down here we have this ID of root, and I briefly touched about root in part 6, and root is like, you think of a how do you say, you think of a plant has a root, and everything springs from the root, right? And we talked about and you may have heard about like root directory or root folder, and root is like the, how do you say, the base, and root is a foundation. It's where everything goes into, it's what it's built upon. So we have manually put in our markup code, right? We put in our h1 tag, test title, and then our p tags that have all of the lorem ipsum just for dummy content. Well, we can actually use JavaScript again with document ID to put the content that we want in here. All right, so let's go ahead and I'll show you how to do this. All right, so let's start simple. Let's do let content equal this is content. Okay, so let's do document.getElementById, and then let's grab the root. You can type it in or you can just copy it. I like to copy it just so we don't have any mistakes. And then we'll put that in quotations, and it doesn't matter if it's a single or double quote. So document.getElementById root. So JavaScript is saying, hey, go into the document and get this element, right? And then we want to say dot innerHTML, and this is the method that says get, and this is the method that says we're going to put HTML content into the root, right? Equals content. And so let's see what is going to happen. Is this going to render out all of our content here? that we have, the lorem ipsum and the test title, or is it going to render out this is content? Well, let's find out. We'll come back to our page, we'll hit refresh, and we got this is content. All right, well, why is that? Well, the thing is, remember we've got our script which says defer, right? And that's going to defer the execution of this script all the way at the bottom. So the page, when this thing renders in the browser, it's going to go top to bottom. So it's going to come through all these tags, get the style sheet, get the script, do the test title. It'll render out our nav menu wrapper, all our items. And when it gets to this part, it's going to render out all of this content. And then we hit the bottom, and now, since we have the script deferred, it's going to put all of the, it's going to remove all of this stuff, and this overrides everything. When you have the innerHTML, it's going to take whatever element that you had, whatever element that you target, it's going to basically wipe all this out and then put all of what we have here into the root div, right? And one thing I need to clarify here, one thing that I've been mistakenly using, my brain's kind of in two different places with stuff, but innerHTML is not a method, but it's actually a property. Like we did the length property. I know I've been saying innerHTML is a method, but I need to correct myself here and say that's a property. So please forgive my error. I am not perfect by any means, and I don't pretend to be perfect. That's not real life, but I digress. So you'll see that it says innerHTML, and there's a reason why it's HTML. And really quickly, I want to show you that there's another property that's very similar, and we can say inner. Let me go ahead and delete this. Oop, why is it doing that? innerText. Okay. Now there's a difference in this that you may not know about, and I'll show you here in a second. So innerText is not taking in HTML like HTML markup, and the difference is that it's only going to put it's only going to treat this as text, like raw base text. So let's go ahead and refresh, and it says this is content. Now when we use HTML, innerHTML, what this is doing is it's going to whatever we put in here, it's going to treat it as HTML markup. Okay, so let's go ahead. So right now we have document.getElementById root.innerHTML and content. So this is kind of just like if you took this is content and you just stuck it in here. Just ignore the stuff down here below, but this is what is happening, right? This is content. Okay, I'm clicking that up, Control S, and let's come to our let's come back to our console here, and let's pull up the elements, and you'll see here right now this content. And so what's really cool about the elements is you can see as I'm scrolling over these things in the elements part, all the things are changing color, and that's a good way to help you find elements on your document when you're figuring things out and debugging. So let's click here on the container, and you can see the nav menu is blue, and now the root wrapper is blue on the left hand side. You can see that this is content. So click on this little triangle here to expand it, and you'll see here that the div ID root, and you see this is content, right? And let's come back to our code really quickly, and we're just putting in this is content, right? Now let's look back at our page, and you can see over here on the left what I have highlighted, this is content. So this is just raw text, and with raw text it doesn't have any top and bottom margins. So let's come here back to our page, and let's actually come inside the quotation marks, and let's do a p tag. And then we'll do an opening p tag, and then we'll come after this is content, and we'll come in here and we'll paste, and we'll put the slash in here, and now we have a set of opening and closing tags. And what the innerHTML is going to do, and it's going to respect these tags, and it's going to treat these tags as markup like we have here, right? So let's go ahead and Control S to save. Now let's come back here to our page and take notice this is content, watch, and right now there's no top and bottom margin, and you'll see here in our div on the right hand side the div root, and you can just see it's just raw text. Now let's go ahead and hit the refresh. Boom. Now you can see here this is content. Now it has top and bottom margins, which remember a p tag is a blockline element, and it has inherent top and bottom margins. So let's come over here on our elements panel, come to our div, container div, open it up, and then we'll come down here to our root wrapper and expand it out. And then we need to come to this again and expand it out again, and now we have a p tag. So the way that this innerHTML property works, once again, is that it treats all of this as HTML markup. Okay. Now let's see what happens if we comment our innerHTML out, and we come here and we say innerText. We use this property, and then we're going to pass all this in. Well, let's see what happens, shall we? Okay, remember once again we have this is content, which we used as which came out as, you know, a p tag with this is content, and it has the block level element with the inherent top and bottom margins. Now let's watch, and we'll hit refresh. Well, look at that. We have p tags, and you saw how the margins collapsed, because once again this is treating the code is innerText is just plain text. It won't respect the markup. All right, and you can see the margins collapsed, and we're just spitting out raw text. And if we come back in here and we come to our div, and then we come to our root wrapper, and then we come to our root div, you can see the color here. It's white. You know, the white, that means it's just plain text. So it's just rendering out a regular less than, a regular p, a regular greater than. This is content. It's rendering out a regular tag and forward slash and things like that. So let me go ahead and do this, so we can do a side by side comparison. Okay, let me come back here. Now let's hit Control Z, Control Z, Control S to save. So let me refresh it here on this page, and then hit F12 to get the console log and pull it back up. Now we can see side by side. This is innerText, the innerText property, right? That's the innerText property on this page, and here is using the innerHTML property. So I wanted to point this out because, so when you want to render out, so if you want to put markup, if you want to put HTML markup into a target element, you'll need to use innerHTML property. And if you're not concerned about innerHTML and you just want to go ahead and put random text into it, you can just say innerText. But it's okay, you can go ahead, and a lot of people do it, and it's not a problem. You can go ahead and render out simple text using HTML. It's not going to freak out, there's no problem. But I just wanted to point out the nuance between innerHTML and innerText properties. Remember, we talked about, in the previous videos, we talked about template strings, and you remember we use the tick marks right here. We use those tick marks, and we put we use interpolation, and we use, for the interpolation method, we use the $sign and then curly braces. And there's a reason why, using these tick marks and the interpolation method. These, if you remember back, these tick marks, they respect white spaces and they respect line breaks. Now let me go ahead and demonstrate this to you. So let's just comment that out really quickly. And let's go ahead and just put a p tag in here. And then we'll do the closing p tag here. And let's go ahead and come back to our page, refresh. And so we've got in here, we've got our root, and we have, this is content, right? And you can see that the p tags in this are blue. So this is actual markup, and then this is content, is the text, the raw text. So what happens if we want to style our code? Well, if you want to kind of make it like HTML, right? Well, you can see it's pitching a fit. Even if whatever we do, it's pitching a fit, and it's not going to work. Hit Control-S to save, come back here, and we've got back our test title. We go to the console, and then we get invalid or unexpected token on line 6. And that's just basically complaining that, hey, whatever this thing is, it ain't working. I have no idea how to make this happen. So let's take these tick marks, and we'll use the template string methodology. So we'll come in here, we'll go ahead and put the opening tick, and we'll go ahead and put the closing tick, Control-S, and you can see, those red squigglies aren't complaining anymore, right? Hit Control-S to save, and let's see what happens now. Okay, well, this is content. You'll see here in a second where I'm going with this. So with the innerHTML, we can use the template strings method, you know, the backticks. And what we can do is we can actually structure out HTML markup in here. So let's go ahead and put, for fun, a div here. And then we'll put a div here. And then we'll need to do a / to make it a closing div. And let's go ahead and hit enter. Well, you can see it's complaining. It's not wanting to work. But it'll work if you do it like this. Let me go ahead and show you. Come back to our page, Control-S to save, refresh. This is content. Let's open it up here and open up our target root. And you can see we rendered out the div. This is content and a div. Well, what happens if we want to do another div? Okay, we'll copy that, paste it. This is content 2. Control-S, refresh, come to our page. This is content 2. Come to our elements, open up the root wrapper, back to the root, and we can see this is rendering out line by line, right? But this is confusing, and this is ugly. And then once again, if we try to like make it readable, it complains. It doesn't work. It won't work. Let me show you that. And the test title comes up, and we come to the console, and it says uncaught syntax error, invalid or unexpected token. And that means, hey, I don't understand what this means, because we broke a line. And that's not the way how this works. So let's go ahead and get that back up here. So instead of using quotation marks, let's use the backticks, or the template string method. So put that one there, the opening tick, backtick, the closing backtick. Now let's go ahead and structure our code as if we're doing markup on the HTML page. So now let's see what's going to happen. You can see it's not complaining, right? Everything's kosher. right? Come here, refresh the page. Hey, it's working again. Well, that's really cool. Now let's come back to our elements, come to our root wrapper, our root div, and you can see now it's rendering out. Now, you know, when you get, this is kind of, might be a little difficult and confusing starting out as a novice developer. And you can come in here and do code like this. And we'll go ahead and put opening and closing p tags into our content variable. And we can structure our code as if we are working in the HTML file. And this will be very, okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish this out. I'm trying to talk and do two things at once, okay? So we are kind of following the format of our HTML code, right? You know, you have your div and your indentation, and then your P, and then indentation. Well, here you can structure your code. You can structure dynamic content or content that will be rendered with HTML like this. All right, we'll come here, hit refresh, and now, hey, look at that. It's actually following the behavior of what we're saying with our div tags and with our p tags, because you know, you can see on the left, this is content too, and then this is content is the raw text, and the p tags are they are the p tags that are being respected, and the p tags are being respected when this is getting rendered out. So for reinforcement, what happens if we come in here and do innerText? Well, let's change it, Control S to save, come here to refresh, and you can see here now on the left hand side, we're just rendering out all the text. And I'm just showing this to you for more reinforcement. And you'll see that JavaScript puts these quotations in there, and that's just something that the rendering engine does. Let's get back to how it was before. So learning this technique early on will be beneficial for you to know, because as you develop more and more complicated websites and web applications, this will be an easy way for you to render out blocks of code that will often be repeated. And in the next tutorial, I'll be showing you how to write efficient and modular code, and you'll see how and why. And you'll understand why learning this early on in your development career is going to be very powerful, and it's going to save you a lot of work and headache. Alrighty, so with that, I'm going to get some more coffee and start planning for lesson 11. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.